Right now, Milano Cortina 2026 is happening. Athletes are landing triple axels, flying down mountains at 90 miles per hour and representing their countries in front of millions. Somewhere, a commentator just screamed about a historic moment. Someone's crying on a podium. National anthems are playing, and you're scrolling past it feeling absolutely nothing. Here's the thing, you're not broken. You're not cold or uncultured or missing some essential human emotion. Your brain just isn't wired to find this particular thing rewarding. And that's worth understanding, because the guilt of not caring about something everyone else seems to care about is its own weird form of exhaustion. This video breaks down the 3 types of brains that don't get hooked by the Olympics, and a quick test to figure out which one you are. Because I just don't care isn't actually one thing. It's at least 3 different things, and each one has a different psychology underneath. Type 1 is tribe immune. The national pride thing does nothing for you. Type 2 hits what I call the story friction wall. You can't care about a narrative you were never given an entry point into. Type 3 runs an attention and values firewall. You're either protecting your focus, or the whole spectacle just doesn't align with what matters to you. One of these types looks like apathy from the outside, but it's actually a healthy filter. Let's start with Type 1. Type 1 is tribe immune. The Olympics run on borrowed identity. You watch someone you've never met do something you've never tried, and somehow their victory becomes your victory. Their country's anthem plays, and you feel something in your chest. That's the tribal reward system firing, the ancient part of your brain that bonds you to a group and makes their wins feel like your wins. Some people don't get that hit. The "we won" feeling just doesn't arrive. You can appreciate the skill. Watching someone do something physically extraordinary is objectively impressive, but the emotional surge that comes from them being American or Canadian or Japanese, nothing. You watch the crowd lose their minds, flags waving, tears streaming, and you think, these people have never met this athlete. Why are they acting like they just won something personally? This isn't cynicism. It's a different wiring. Your brain doesn't automatically extend your identity to include strangers who happen to share a passport. That extension requires something more: a personal connection, a specific story, a reason to care beyond geography. Here's how to spot this type. Rivalries feel manufactured to you. The USA versus Russia storyline, the historic grudge match narrative. It registers as marketing rather than meaning. You don't feel pride by proxy. Someone from your country winning gold doesn't change your Tuesday. You're drawn to individual stories, specific humans with specific struggles, not national narratives painted in broad strokes. When someone asks, "Did you see we won?" you're quietly thinking, "We didn't do anything. That person did." What this usually means is that your reward system is more individual story-driven than tribe-driven. You need meaning attached to a person, not a flag. That's not a deficiency. It's just a different threshold for emotional investment. If you're Type 1 and you actually want to enjoy the Olympics, here's the move. Pick one athlete. Learn their specific story. Forget the national drama and focus on one human trying to do something difficult. That's the doorway for brains like yours. Type 2 is the story friction wall. Here's something people don't talk about. You can't care about a story you were never invited into. The Olympics assume you've been following along, that you know the athletes, understand the stakes, remember what happened 4 years ago. But if you're coming in cold, none of it makes sense. It's like walking into the third act of a movie and being expected to cry at the ending. Here's how this type shows up. You don't know who anyone is. The commentators reference someone's incredible journey, and you're thinking, who is this person and why should I be invested? The sports themselves are confusing. You're not entirely sure how scoring works in figure skating, or what makes one ski run better than another. The schedule is scattered across random times. Some events happening at 3 a.m., others buried in coverage you can't find. By the time you figure out what's worth watching, the moment already passed. This isn't lack of interest. It's lack of narrative access. You'd probably care if someone handed you the story in a digestible form. One athlete's arc, one rivalry that makes sense, one event explained clearly. But the Olympics don't do that work for you. They assume you're already bought in, so you bounce. What this usually means is that you're not missing the emotion gene. You're missing the entry point. Your brain needs a doorway into the story before it can care about the outcome. Without that, watching feels like homework. If you're Type 2 and you want in, here's the fix. One sport, one event, one storyline. That's it. Find a single athlete with a compelling narrative, learn enough to understand what they're trying to do, and watch just that. The emotional payoff comes from investment, and investment requires knowing what's at stake. Before Type 3, let's make this concrete. Quick test. Answer honestly. First, do you feel nothing from national pride or "we won" moments? Does the tribal hype fall completely flat? That's Type 1. Second, would you actually care if you understood the stakes and had a favorite to root for? Is the problem access rather than interest? That's type 2. Third, do you actively avoid the Olympics because it feels like an attention drain? Or because something about the event, the commercialization, the politics, the manufactured drama, turns you off? That's type 1. 3. Whichever resonated most reveals the main reason you don't care. And type 3 is the most misunderstood because it often gets labeled as contrarian when it's actually something else entirely. Type 3 is the attention and values firewall. Some people treat attention like currency. They know there's only so much in the budget, and spending it on live scheduled content with uncertain payoff feels like a bad investment. Why commit hours to something that might be boring when you could watch a series with guaranteed narrative satisfaction? Or learn something useful, or just protect your mental bandwidth for things that actually matter to you? Here's how this type shows up. You hate being told when to pay attention. The whole "it's happening live, you have to watch now" pressure irritates rather than excites you. You'd rather watch highlights on your own schedule than sit through hours of coverage waiting for something interesting. The hype itself feels like a demand. Everyone's posting about it, talking about it, expecting you to have an opinion. And that expectation makes you want to disengage even more. There's also a values component for some people in this type. Maybe the commercialization feels gross, the endless sponsorships, the branding, the way everything becomes a product placement opportunity. Maybe the politics around hosting countries bothers you, the way billions get spent on stadiums while local populations struggle. Maybe the whole spectacle triggers something about institutions or nationalism or manufactured emotion that you'd rather not participate in. It's not that you're too cool to care, it's that caring would require ignoring things you can't ignore. Some people in this type also just don't resonate with competitive sports as a category. They'd rather watch a documentary about the athletes than the actual competition. The outcome matters less to them than understanding the person. Competition itself feels arbitrary. Why does crossing a line first matter? That's not a wrong perspective. It's just a different relationship with what constitutes meaningful content. What this usually means is that your brain has developed a filter for attention demands, and the Olympics trips that filter. This isn't laziness or contrarianism. It's a modern defense mechanism. Attention is expensive, and you've learned to protect it. In an era where everything is demanding your eyeballs, being selective isn't apathy. It might be wisdom. If you're type 3 and you still want to participate culturally without giving up your whole week, here's the approach. Decide your watch budget in advance. 20 minutes of highlights. One event you're mildly curious about. No guilt about skipping the rest. You can be informed enough to participate in conversations without surrendering your attention to something that doesn't earn it. So here's where this leaves you. 2 paths depending on what you actually want. If you want to care, the entry point matters more than motivation. Pick one athlete with a story that interests you. Pick one sport you're curious about. Watch one event with enough context to understand the stakes. That's it. You don't need to become an Olympics superfan. You just need a single thread to pull. The emotional payoff follows the investment. Give yourself something specific to invest in. If you don't want to care, that's also fine. But you might still want to participate in conversations without feeling like a fraud. 2 phrases that let you engage without pretending. I haven't been following closely. What's been the wildest moment so far? Or, if I watch one thing, what should it be? Both invite the other person to share their enthusiasm while honestly acknowledging where you're at. You don't need to fake interest. You just need a clean way to connect. Here's the summary. Tribe immune means the national pride engine doesn't fire for you. You need individual stories, not flag waving. Story friction means you never got the narrative entry point. You'd care if someone made it easy to care. Attention and values firewall means your brain treats the Olympics as a demand rather than an invitation, and demands get filtered out. None of these means you're broken, cold, or missing something essential. It means your brain is selective about what earns emotional investment. In a world constantly demanding your attention for things that don't matter to you, that selectivity might be one of the healthier instincts you have. The cultural pressure to care about major events can feel suffocating when you genuinely don't. Like there's a shared experience happening that you're excluded from, not by choice, but by wiring. Understanding why you don't care, which of these 3 types fits, can release that pressure. You're not failing to appreciate something beautiful. You're just not the audience it was designed for. That's allowed. So tell me, which type are you? Did this finally explain why you've never understood the hype? Drop it in the comments. I want to know which one clicked. If this made you feel less weird about not caring, subscribe. We break down the psychology behind everyday patterns in a way that actually makes sense. The next video flips this completely. The psychology of people who are obsessed with K-pop. What makes that specific fandom so intense? Why do people form such deep emotional connections to artists they've never met? That one gets into tribal identity, parasocial bonding, and why some fandoms create devotion that looks almost religious from the outside. I'll see you there.